Thanks for joining us on this edition of Business Daily. Coming to you live from Seoul, I'm Lee Ji-yoon. We have a lot on our plate today, so let's get a quick check at the day's highlights. President Park Geun-hye addresses the nation, laying out her plans to reform the public, labor, finance, and education sectors. We're seeing Korea's manufacturing industry suffer, facing low global oil prices and falling trade. What should the government and businesses do to find a breakthrough? The public sector, labor, finance, and education. These are the four areas that President Park Geun-hye is hoping to reform as she approaches the midpoint of her 5-year term in office. For more, here's our Choi Yoo-san.
Emphasizing structural reform as the key to shoring up Korea's new growth engines, President Park said her priority is revamping the country's rigid labor market. With the youth unemployment rate surpassing 10%, the president sought public support for a wage peak system of reducing wages for older workers to hire more young people.
저는 청년 일자리 문제를 해결하는 것이야말로 우리 사회를 건강하게 만드는 토대이자 저출산 문제를 해결하는 핵심적인 열쇠라고 생각합니다.
President Park then called for fairness and flexibility in the labor market, determining employment and wages based on a worker's abilities and achievements, not job security or how long he or she has been employed.
청년들에게 더 많은 일자리를 제공할 수 있도록 대기업과 고임금 정규직들이 조금씩 양보와 타협의 정신을 발휘해 줄 것을 간곡히 당부드립니다.
The president also vowed to implement the wage peak system in all public institutions this year, saying she expects to see 8,000 new jobs in 2 years. Prompting labor and management to resume negotiations with the government on labor reforms, President Park promised to raise unemployment benefits to 60% of a person's average wage and help the unemployed find jobs. In other areas, the president pledged to unify redundant public sector projects, expand a program that gives students a semester free of exams to foster creativity, and remove the corporate protectionism in the financial sector. President Park said it is the public that stands at the center of state affairs and only they can bring about changes and improvements to the country. She then urged the entire nation to join hands and share the burden for everyone's coexistence and prosperity. Choi Yoo-sun, Business Daily.
And following the president's speech, the business sector welcomed the president's pledge to reform, especially the labor market. Now, the Federation of Korean Industries said it strongly agrees that in order for the country to break out of structural low growth, reforms must be carried out in the four areas highlighted by the president, which are the public sector, finance, education, and labor. The group added that it supports President Park's efforts to transform the country's rigid labor market through various measures, such as the wage peak system, performance-based promotion, and greater flexibility in the labor market. The recent succession battle at Lotte Group has ignited debate about the structure of ownership at some of Korea's largest businesses. And a recent report shows that those in top command reign over their business empires despite holding paltry shares. Our Park Se-young tells us more.
0.25%. That's the average stake held by the heads of Korea's top 10 business groups, according to data released by big business tracker 제조업이. Samsung's chairman Lee Gun-hee topped the list with a 2.24% stock ownership, and Doosan Group's Park Yong-gun came in last with virtually no stakes that can be enumerated. There has been heightened scrutiny of shareholding structures at Korea's conglomerates following an ongoing succession battle within the founding family of Lotte Group and the government's investigation into its corporate governance structure. Korea's conglomerates, or chaebol, are commonly built on a network of affiliates connected through a complicated web of cross-shareholdings. Current fair trade laws ban new cross-shareholding arrangements, but not existing ones. This is how founding families are able to sit at top managerial positions and wield great influence with just a handful of stakes. Lotte Group founder Shin Gyuk-ho only has a 0.05% share in the company, but the complex structure had made it possible for him to control the entire body. The group confirmed there are over 400 cross-shareholding arrangements binding the conglomerate together. In light of the family feud at Lotte, the government and policymakers are moving to reform such ownership structures of Korea's conglomerates. Park Se-young, Business Daily.
Now, the Korean economy is recovering from the MERS shock, but the gains are still not enough to pull it up to the government's 3.1% growth target. That's according to the State of the Economy report released by Korea Development Institute on Thursday. It said domestic consumption and investment indicators did improve in July, but were still underwhelming, outweighed by on-year losses in manufacturing and slumping industrial output. Given the downcast mood of the global economy, the think tank said conditions for exports remain poor. In fact, a survey of experts late last month had them downgrading Korea's growth forecast for this year to 2.6%. If you still think flip phones are old and outdated, wait until you see some of the latest editions produced by Korea's leading phone makers. They could be much smarter than you think. Our Lee Ji-young has more.
Folder phones are back in style, attracting a wide range of users with their smarter functions. This new Galaxy folder from Samsung Electronics is equipped with a touchscreen, a large-size keypad, and a button that can activate the most frequently used applications.
It's a folder phone, but it combines smartphone and analog features, so we're trying to provide a variety of options for a broad range of customers.
Samsung says the flip phones are recommended for those who have trouble using typical smartphones or don't need the wealth of features offered. Another tech giant, LG, has also released a flip smartphone, the LG Gentle, that comes with a high-resolution display and is equipped with a support for high-speed Wi-Fi. Both phones are about 1/3 the price of more sophisticated smartphones, as phone makers are turning out cheaper models to break away from their premium gadget lineup.
These cheaper folder smartphones are gaining popularity among students or people studying for various entrance exams.
The new models not only help diversify the handset portfolio of manufacturers as they face feeble sales in the global market, they also offer a better chance for companies in the domestic market. A new law that was put in place last October in Korea caps phone subsidies mobile carriers can provide to retail stores, dampening demand for high-end phones. By combining the old with the new, phone makers hope to reach a wider range of consumers and push out more products down the line. Lee Ji-young, Business Daily.
And now let's take a look at how the markets fared here in Seoul today. Seoul shares dipped on Thursday as investors dumped major exporters like tech and auto stocks amid uncertainties in the U.S. fund's rate hike and a downbeat earnings forecast. At the closing bell, the benchmark Kospi dropped 0.81%, finishing the day at 2013.29. While the tech-heavy Kosdaq also went down by 0.87% to end at 747.74. On the foreign exchange counter, the Korean currency gained ground against the greenback, ending at 1,166.21. Slowing demand from many markets overseas is putting a dent in Korea's manufacturing sector, once the main driving force behind the country's economic growth. Some are even saying that the country's manufacturers are facing a full-fledged crisis. Let's take a look.
The world's three biggest shipbuilders, all from Korea, posted a combined $4.1 billion in operating losses in the second quarter, paying the price for venturing into offshore oil rigs to avoid direct competition with Chinese shipbuilders. The losses were far worse than what analysts had estimated, and the bad news doesn't end here. The country's semiconductors, steelmaking, and automobile industries are also seeing their sales drop, tumbling with weakening competitiveness. Latest numbers indicate that business conditions for Korea's manufacturers were grim, with a Purchasing Managers Index, or PMI, at 47.6 in July, ranking 24th among 28 countries surveyed. A figure below 50 means the manufacturing sector is contracting. With China's economic slowdown, Japan's weak yen, and falling global oil prices all dragging down the industry, what can Asia's fourth largest economy do to find a breakthrough?
And to tell us more about this, we're now joined by Professor Shin Se-don of Sukmyeong Women's University. Thank you so much for coming in today.
Always pleasure.
All right, so before we get started, let's talk about the role that Korean manufacturers are playing within the Korean economy. I mean, how large of a role have they played in the past, and what about now?
Well, we can't talk about Korean economic miracle without talking about the strength of manufacturing. So we could say the manufacturing has been sine qua non for Korean economy for the last maybe 4 or 5 decades. But now, if you look at the numbers published internationally, the numbers are pretty striking in the sense that if you look at the CIA fact book, Korea was ranked number 140th in industrial production, and that ranking 140 is even lower than North Korea, which is about 110th. So if you look at the sales growth in the manufacturing for the last 5 years, it dipped into the negative area since 2013. And if you look at the number of production, it used to be 6% in 2011, and I think definitely it went to below the negative sector this year. And last year it was 0.1% in the production. And in terms of the export, as you might see, from January until July, the export is growing almost a negative 5%. So manufacturing is really serious in trouble for the last couple of years.
All right. Well, Korea used to be a leading force when it came to manufacturing, but like you said, the numbers show that the sector is contracting sharply. What are some reasons behind this, would you say?
Well, there are some internal reasons, lost in competitiveness and productivity on the labor side, and also there are some external factors like a lot of challenging coming from China, Vietnam, and even nowadays, you will see a pretty hectic challenge from Japanese industries because of the very weak yen. So all over from Japan, developing countries like Vietnam and India, and also China, as well as the global players in the European Union and also the United States, all over Korean manufacturing is facing serious challenges.
All right. So, and you mentioned the U.S., but are there other countries that are struggling right now in terms of manufacturing?
Almost all the advanced countries, mostly in Europe and also Japan, has been struggling in the manufacturing industries for almost decades. So that's why President Obama, when he took office in 2008 and 2009, he realized that manufacturing, not the financial sector, the manufacturing is essence of the economic trouble in the United States. So he implemented a series of actions, and he initiated a number of programs. So for example, United States established a new Office of Manufacturing Policy in 2011 in National Economic Council, which is equivalent to National Security Council. And also he initiated a network for innovation in the manufacturing industry in 2012. And recently in 2014, he had set up, initiated new actions for further strengthening of U.S. manufacturing. So if you look at the Obama government since the inception, you will see that the government and administration is putting a very heavy emphasis on manufacturing. And also you can find in Germany, they said Industry 4.0, which is a new version of manufacturing policy. And if you look at Japan, also Japan has initiated a manufacturing innovation design for 2020. And if you look at China, they had also a similar program of 2025, heading to becoming a second manufacturing power in the world. So all over the world, every country, every government is trying to renovate the manufacturing sector, but Korea, the emphasis is put on rather a service sector.
But then last year, the Korean government devised something like that, like the U.S. But did it work at all? In your opinion?
It was initiated just last year, so we have to see. But if you carefully look at the government policy initiated last year, you could say that was the emphasis put on smart innovation, and also the Korean policy is geared toward new area, or we call it creative economy. So Korean policy is geared towards a new. So far not existed industries, but all the other countries are emphasizing traditional industry. Traditional industries already existing, they wanted to revitalize their industry. But Korea, if you look at the Korean policy, they're geared to a new something, not even mature. So I think that there's pretty much differences in nuances.
All right, then what's your outlook for our manufacturing sector?
Well, if we don't, the government and industry not doing something for the future of manufacturing industry, I think the strength of the Korean manufacturing industry will lose its ground down the road. So I think it's pretty inevitable for the government as well as the industry itself do something to kind of renovate the Korean manufacturing industry.
All right, thank you so much for coming in today, Professor.
Pleasure.
And that wraps it up for today. Hope you enjoyed it. We'll be back with more tomorrow, so don't forget to tune in then. Thanks for watching, and see you soon.